Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today, we're going to look at another horrific case with you, Dangerous Connections. Lizzi Marriott, a 19-year-old student, vanished on October 9, 2012. After her classes, she returned home and placed a note on the table. It was sent to Tony and Becky Hanna, the girl's uncle and aunt who were staying with her. Lizzi said she was going to visit a friend and would be back by midnight. However, the niece did not return that day, or the niece did not return that day or the next. Later, her car was discovered in the university parking lot. The girl looked to have vanished without a trace. The search for the missing child eventually became a search for her body. The cops became aware of the horrific details of her demise. Once, the girl's openness and kindness worked against her. This is a story about the dangers of unbridled desire. When both state and universal laws are broken, terrible crimes are perpetrated. Freedom for one individual stops when another's rights begin. This is undeniably true. Tony and Becky's niece became a full-fledged family member. To save money on accommodation, she moved in with them while attending the University of New Hampshire. Lizzi adored sea animals and decided to pursue a career in marine biology. She relocated to Chester in the fall of 2012. Abandoning her parents, Bob and Melissa Marriott, with whom she had lived in Massachusetts. They were separated by a 2-hour journey, yet they remained in close communication. Everyone adored the girl because of her soft, kind, and sweet personality. She would shout, "I'm home," her aunt recounted, and we felt delight in our hearts because she felt at ease with us, and we with her. Lizzi enjoyed her new life and uncharted territory lied ahead. In her spare time, she worked at Target, where she rapidly adapted and became well known. There, she met Kate McDonald, who was 18 years old. The girls quickly discovered a similar language and frequently hung out after work. Lizzi was already in Kate's flat when Kate invited her again, so she accepted. On October 9th, the pals gathered. They planned to spend the evening together, having supper and watching a movie. However, their solitude was broken. Kate's boyfriend, 30-year-old Seth Mazzella, joined them. The heroine didn't mind the company. It's more enjoyable together. Furthermore, her new connections were interesting individuals involved in theater. Seth also graduated from the same university as Lizzi, but with a focus on theater arts. Despite the fact that he worked as a consultant in an electronics store, he gained valuable skills. He trained as an emergency medical technician, received a black belt in karate, and even taught martial arts. Overall, they had a lot to talk about. The evening promised to be entertaining and concluded on a positive note. It's only that after entering the young people's flat, the female never left again. When Lizzi did not return by the stated time, her relatives decided to wait until the evening of the following day. Perhaps she stayed with a friend overnight before heading to university. However, when she did not show up on October 10th, the aunt and uncle became concerned and contacted her parents. It turned out that they, too, had no knowledge. The police, relatives, and the girl's friends all helped with the search. The investigation started by questioning everyone who knew her. Unfortunately, the relatives had no idea where Lizzi had gone. However, owing to her pals, this information was discovered. Nate McNeil, a friend, stated that he knew where she might be and pointed to Kate McDonald. He also stated that he asked Kate if she had Lizzi, and she answered no. Detectives took note of the guy's statements and began investigating the fresh information. Meanwhile, it was discovered that there were no transactions in the girl's bank accounts, and her phone was turned off. The first theory that she'd been in an accident was ruled out. Only a few days later, her automobile was discovered. At the same time, Bob and Melissa Marriott offered a $10,000 prize to anyone who could provide information on their daughter's location. After speaking with Lizzi's friends and colleagues, investigators discovered new information regarding Kate and her boyfriend. The relationship was different from what they attempted to portray in public. Soon after Seth Mazzella was arrested, Lizzi and Kate's pals reported that the girls had recently spent a lot of time together. They did, however, appear to have distinct personalities and approaches to life. Lizzi was very friendly and compassionate, whereas Kate was quiet and nasty. What drew them closer was unclear. Those who have worked at McDonald's for years claimed that this was not always the case. She underwent significant changes after beginning a relationship with Seth. There was no trace of her previous happiness or lightness. Later, it was discovered that she had limited touch with her relatives since they were opposed to her new lover. He seemed suspicious and antisocial. The couple began dating when the girl was 17. When she reached 18, they moved in together and started living in Mazzella's apartment in Dover, New Hampshire. The police searched their databases, paying special attention to the couple, but discovered nothing extraordinary. Officers discovered various details regarding young people's personal life when reviewing their online profiles. Seth and Kate engaged in non-traditional partnerships. McDonald put a hot advertisement on one of the websites under the alias Miss Scarlet Vampire Actress. She explained that she and her lord were looking for a live-in slave. Housekeeping, dishwashing, laundry, cooking, and being ready for intimacy at any time were all compulsory chores. The girl also talked a little about herself and her partner. She described their relationship as dominant, subservient, with the former dictating and controlling and the latter entirely submissive to his wishes. Finally, the girl attached her photographs in a Gothic way. The poem made it plain that the two's affections were based on humiliation and submission rather than love and respect. The pair practiced BDSM, with Seth as the dominant and Kate as the submissive. Detectives had no questions about their involvement in Lizzi's disappearance. On October 12th, the youth were summoned for interrogation. They were questioned concurrently, but separately. This facilitated the investigation. For 2 hours, Kate insisted that she had not met Lizzi on October 9th. After that, she refused to speak. Meanwhile, Seth became more communicative. He refuted his friend's remarks, claiming that Marriott was really present at their location on that particular day. However, a tragedy happened. At first, everything seemed fine. They watched a movie and played strip poker. After that, they formed a threesome. He claimed that no one objected to intimacy and was ethically prepared. Throughout the process, he tied the girls with ropes. However, something went awry, and Lizzi died by accident. Then, in shock and dread of being misunderstood, he and Kate carried the girl's body to Pierce Island and dumped it into the Piscataqua River. After that, they returned home. Following an 11-hour interrogation, Mazzella accompanied the police to the indicated location, where he graphically explained how he arrived and dumped the body from the cliff. On October 13th, the suspect was charged with murder. The news of their daughter's death devastated her parents. Melissa Marriott claimed she had a sense about it, but she didn't want to believe it until the last minute. On the same day, a candlelight vigil was conducted in honor of the deceased. Her father thanked everyone who came and hoped that the prayer said today will help Lizzi find peace. Bob Marriott claimed that she had transformed into an angel who had flown to paradise. Her buddy Nate, who was actively involved in the search for the kid, recalled that she was always telling hilarious anecdotes to brighten emotions or provide comfort during difficult situations. He sadly admitted that she might have had something to say to us in this circumstance as well. The girl's parents refused to accept Mazzella's narrative of death. They mentioned that their daughter was in a relationship and valued it greatly. They insisted she would never betray her beloved Brittany. They prayed to God and requested that the police locate the poor girl's body as quickly as possible. Say goodbye to her as humans and bury her as humans and bury her. The search continued every day. Volunteers joined the authorities' efforts. Even a private investigator was working on it. However, the river that became Lizzi's ultimate resting place experiences powerful tides and ebbs. It's possible she's been transported into the Atlantic Ocean for quite some time. The investigation continues. A search was conducted at Mazzella's residence and beyond. It's worth noting that the young couple's home was not neat and organized. Chaos reigned everywhere. Detectives also discovered that Seth was intrigued in occultism and black magic. Since no evidence was discovered in the flat, forensic professionals investigated the surrounding region. They discovered a bag containing personal items in one of the garbage cans. They included a hoodie, men's undergarments, and black leather gloves. During the testing, It was discovered that the underwear had DNA evidence from Seth and Lizzi. This established their close relationship, and the sweatshirt belonged to the dead, as identified by her family. But why were leather gloves on this list? If it's a love game accessory, why throw it away with the rest of the evidence? Apparently, Mazzella's remarks were not entirely true. He could easily pass off his desire as fact. However, Kat McDonald's statement verified it. On October 17th, the girl broke her silence and revealed what had transpired. She admitted that Lizzi came to her on October 9th. Later, Seth joined them. They started with a movie and then moved on to strip poker. During the game, they were excited and decided to start an intimate connection. She claimed that everyone shared the same urge. It all began with kisses and care. Seth then suggested tying Lizzi up with ropes, and she agreed. The girl even demonstrated schematically how Seth accomplished it. Everything was going smoothly until Marriott had a seizure. She began to suffocate and eventually lost consciousness. When Seth and Kat lifted the girl, she was not breathing. Everything happened fast and unexpectedly. McDonald maintained that no one was responsible for what transpired. It was an accident. However, an unexpected witness evidence played a key part in the inquiry. One day, a young woman visited the police station. She stated that she had critical information about Lizzi Marriott's case and requested to talk with the investigators leading the investigation. During the conversation, she presented herself as Catherine Fish, Seth Mazzella's former lover. The talk revealed what she was hinting at. Seth was capable of murdering. He once admitted to her that in one of his fantasies, he takes someone's life. But let's start from the beginning. Catherine and Seth met almost 10 years ago. At first, he appeared attentive and compassionate. He courted her well, lavishing her with flowers and presents. He was quite charming throughout talking. The girl instantly fell in love with the pleasant young man, but during their first encounter, she discovered that he was into beadsm. She didn't mind unfamiliar feelings at first as long as he stayed in charge. However, Seth eventually began to exhibit extreme brutality and power. He did not want to be contradicted or interrupted. He sometimes expressed his thoughts and fantasies with her. During one of these conversations, Catherine overheard a dreadful revelation. Then she realized he might be hazardous. As if to confirm this, he grabbed her throat tightly once. The girl begged him to let go, but he refused and proceeded to grip harder. This incident destroyed her illusions. The girl had no idea where she could go to get away from him once they moved to another city. She knew no one and did not communicate with anyone. Furthermore, she was financially dependent on her boyfriend, so she continued to live with him, waiting for a suitable opportunity to flee. Catherine admitted that, over time, Seth began to discuss a third partner. He became bored with her in bed, so he decided to mix things up. As a result, he invited different girls to their residence on a regular basis, but none of them stayed for long, so Mazzella stated that they needed to locate a permanent girlfriend. Catherine's life descended into horror. Catherine stated that Seth had scared her so much that she didn't dare to go. After several months of accumulating bravery, she decided to flee. Fish miraculously traveled 1,000 miles to her parents' home. But it is another story. She never saw her ex-boyfriend again. In May 2014, Seth Mazzella appeared in court. The prosecution claimed the defendant was guilty of both intentional murder and taking advantage. Several individuals testified against him. Kat McDonald was among those who attended the trial shortly before. 2 months after Lizzi's death, she was arrested and held in detention. She was charged with obstructing justice and conducting an investigation. The girl had plenty of time to process what had occurred and determine who she was covering for. Initially, she and Seth were in active communication while behind prison. The couple fantasized about escaping and moving to another nation with no extradition laws. They wanted to marry and have children. However, their escape plot was thwarted. In the winter of 2012, Seth persuaded Ryan Bachman, who was about to be released from prison, to join him. Mazzella granted him access to his bank account. Bachman was intended to withdraw money, buy drugs with it, and then sell them to increase the starting cash. With this money, They intended to acquire firearms, 2 cars, explosives, and a boat. However, the friend decided to use the money for his personal benefit. Furthermore, officials learned about the scheme. Following that, Seth abandoned his escape plan and wrote Kat a note recommending they meet in the afterlife. He honestly thought that death did not mark the end of life. Perhaps in this way, he hinted at ending the girl's life. In any case, time aided MacDonald. Her thoughts cleared up. As a result, when the prosecutor's office offered her a favorable deal in 2014, she accepted it without hesitation. According to it, the suspect was required to tell the truth about what happened in the apartment on the evening of October 9. In exchange, the threatened 20-year prison term was reduced to 3. Given the circumstances that emerged later in the investigation, this was a fairly advantageous offer. The girl admitted that she was terrified of Seth and obeyed him in everything. He gradually subdued her will, depriving her of independence. A month and a half before the tragedy, the guy messaged her, telling her to find a third partner as soon as possible because he didn't want to be alone while Kat was away. The thing was, the girl had 10 theater tours planned. However, MacDonald was unable to find a replacement for herself. Mazzella's messages took on different tones over time. He went from orders to threats, promising terrible retribution if she didn't do what he wanted. Kat had to bring at least one of her friends along so that he could carry out his plan. To complete the order, Kat invited Lizzi over. She agreed easily because she had been a guest at her home before and trusted her, and to ensure that the girl arrived without hesitation. MacDonald kept quiet about the fact that they would not be alone. Seth liked the presumed partner and had seen her photos before, so he eagerly anticipated the appointed hour. Imagine how disappointed and angry the guy was when the evening did not go as planned. Marriott arrived at Mazzella's apartment on October 9th at 9 p.m. Kat and Lizzi spent time chatting together before Seth joined them. He was cheerful, made lots of jokes, and looked after the girls. Overall, he brightened up the evening. Following that, the young people began making a movie. During the viewing, Seth suggested playing strip poker while dimming the lights in the room. He intended to create an atmosphere conducive to intimacy. The game was casual, but Lizzi lost and ended up in her underpants. In another losing hand, Seth tried kissing Kat, but she declined, stating that she was already in a relationship and that it horrified her. After a time, the heated guy suggested Marriott to be alone, to which she flatly declined. In response to her reaction, Seth went to his room and put on black leather gloves before retrieving a rope. After that, he returned to sit behind Lizzi. When Seth put the weapon around her neck, the innocent girl had no time to scream. He strangled her without blinking an eye. The murderer then carried out his plan, violating the deceased's body. Throughout this moment, his girlfriend sat close and quietly observed. Kat stated that she was quite afraid. She didn't help the unfortunate girl because she was terrified she'd become the next victim. Around 1 a.m., the pair wrapped Lizzie's body in a tarp and placed it in a suitcase, which they moved to Lizzie's car. Then they went to Pierce Island by the river. They hauled the luggage to an observation deck, dragged out the deceased Marriott, and dumped her off the cliff. Then they cleaned up in the car, drove to college, and parked the girl's car. The pair walked 10 miles home. Kat expressed her fear and horror at what was going on. Later, she didn't want to testify against the person since she knew he'd have no problem getting rid of her. Throughout the trial, the girl sobbed constantly, but no tears fell from her eyes. Because of this, many in the courtroom questioned her genuineness. She was an excellent actress who could effortlessly pretend to be miserable. Seth's lawyer noticed this. He asserted that the girl could take on any professional function. The defendant's defense claimed that Lizzi died accidentally during intercourse. At the same time, no one denied that Seth and Kat eliminated her by disposing of her body. MacDonald's defense, on the other side, claimed that Kat had been under pressure for a long period, which had weakened her mental state. The guy effectively restricted her communication with family and friends, continuously dominating and coercing her into intimacy. The prosecution centered on purposeful murder, emphasizing the discovered gloves. Mazzella, according to the prosecutor, knew exactly what he was going to do with Lizzi, so he purposefully placed them on. He did it to protect himself and bury the evidence. Given the circumstances, his action was far from accidental. Witnesses for the prosecution included the couple's acquaintances, Roberta Gherkin and Paul Hickok. It comes out that Seth called them around 10:49 p.m., just after Marriott was murdered. He stated he needed help and invited them to come over. After 11 p.m., they arrived at Mazzella's residence and discovered a weird scenario. Seth was sitting on the bed, and a female in lingerie laid beside him. When Paul questioned what was going on, Seth said that this time things had gone too far. He repeatedly said this phrase. Roberta discovered cat on the kitchen floor. The girl sat in the fetal position, rocking back and forth. The arriving pair promptly requested an ambulance and hurriedly left. They didn't interfere or contact the cops since they didn't want any more hassle. On August 14, 2014, Seth Mazzella was convicted of first-degree murder by strangulation, taking advantage, and criminal conspiracy. The 32-year-old guy received a life sentence without the possibility of release. Kat McDonald, 20, received the promised 3 years in prison. The girl was reportedly released in 2016. She does not have any social media accounts, at least not under her own name. Some assume she has returned to her parents. Lizzi Marriott's body has never been located. The girl's parents were unable to bury their daughter, so they created a tiny memorial for her in the form of a bench near the lake in their hometown. Bob and Melissa Marriott believe Lizzi's former buddy was sentenced too leniently. Even though the culprit is punished, it cannot be considered justice. The girl has died.